Hey everybody, it's Rex, and today I have my friend Zach here, and we're going to go over our top favorite 6 books to build business, success, and wealth. So stay tuned. All right, guys, so today I got Zach Carteropoli with me. He was one of the employees at the Volvo dealership that I used to work for, that I've took the leap of faith and I quit from to have financial freedom and just work for myself. I don't want to have a boss above me anymore, and that's kind of both of our end goals eventually, is to be our own bosses. But Zach, I was the manager there. He came in as a salesman. He was the top salesman, outsold people, by tremendous amounts, made a ton of money on the sales floor. And before I ended up quitting the dealership, I moved him into finance, which was a great move. You know, he's killing it right now over there. He's only 23 years old. He's began to grow his wealth from a young age. I think 18, right? 17, 18 you were?
Yeah, about 17, 18 is when I started, wanting to learn about investing and whatnot. I just kind of did the, uneducated type investing, 401k, IRA type thing, but now it's kind of moved into more of trading, in terms of, foreign exchange, the Forex market. Right now I'm learning about options trading and then, just buying stocks here and there. That's pretty
Start here, but before we do, make sure you smash that like button, as well as, if you're new to the channel, subscribe to get any updates on any new videos that we release. And let's get into the video.
All right, so I'm going to start it off with the first book. This book is one of the first books that I've actually read when I was a teenager. It's a great book. It's going to be called The Compound Effect. The author is going to be Darren Hardy. Pretty smart guy. He basically helped springboard the Success magazine. I haven't actually read that magazine, but I've heard great things about it. But the compound effect, basically what it does is it kind of helps you with your mindset, not only with the compounding interest effect on your stocks or investments or anything over time, but also helps you with the mindset and the little things that you do throughout the day and throughout the month to compound your life in terms of a positive way. So the compound effect can be negative, it can also be positive. So negatively, it could be with things that you eat, the things that you do, the people that you hang around with. I think that's a huge thing. The people that you hang around with. I've seen it in my personal life with family and friends, taking a negative turn in their life financially, and just their attitude about, attitude and outlook on life. So with the compound effect, it tells you basically little steps that you can do to have that positive compound effect in your life, meaning, you do things for a week, you feel good about it, and it turns into a month, and then it turns into a year, and then just a positive mindset that you get from it, and then also to the effect that it has on your life in terms of, financially, how you deal with people, how you treat people, and basically it's really not a magical type book. It's just something that again, I read as a younger teen that really helped me to kind of change my mindset. And as a younger teen, I was a very negative person, very angry person, and I feel with time and just doing little things from this book, plenty of other books as well has helped me, but this is kind of given me kind of a foundation of how to have an outlook on life, in terms of using exactly what it says, the compound effect. So now I've got more of a positive outlook towards life, a more positive outlook towards people, give people more of the benefit of the doubt, and just as well as financial information as well, in terms of compounding your wealth, putting a 10% aside in your savings. Make sure you have 3 to 6 months of emergency funds, and then just to basically cut back on non-essential spending. For me, it's very easy to go out and buy a meal that costs $20, $30, $40 at a time. If you take that out of your spending habits, you're going to save tons and tons and tons of money, because that's where all of my money went. To begin with, I didn't like cooking or anything like that, meal prepping or anything like that, but I do that now. I actually save tons of money.
Okay, imagine taking that $20, $30, $40 a day or weekly and allowing that into, say, your Roth IRA,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
allowing that interest to compound and that money to compound, it's going to end up costing you a lot more over the life of
absolutely.
spending that and what you would make in investments versus.
And that's a good way to look at it too. So if you look at it, oh, I want this steak dinner. Yeah, it's $50 now, not that much money. But if you look at it, if you put an investment over a year, again, the compound effect through time, you're looking, over 30, 40 years. This is hundreds of thousands of dollars that you could be making by sleeping. So yeah, that's one thing I like about it. So just to recap, the compound effect can be negative, it can be positive. You just have to kind of look at yourself in a circumspectly way. I don't even know if that's a word, but
They go to college, right?
No, not a college degree. But basically, it's basically taking these keys to make it and work as a positive way and outlook towards your life. Because if you don't do it, then negative stuff is just automatically going to happen. That's just human nature, and it's something that you have to combat. So that's this book in a nutshell. That helped me.
All right, guys. So book number 2 on the list is going to be one that my wife gave me for Christmas just last year, and it is the 12-week year. So the 12-week year basically is getting you out of that mindset of having a goal or goals from January until December. And instead of having that whole 12-month process, you break it down to a 12-week process. And basically each week is like a year or like a month for you for this year. And it allows you to accomplish more. It gives you a little bit more sense of urgency to act, because a lot of times in this mindset of having 12 months to get everything done, people start January 1st with the idea that I still have 365 days to get my goals accomplished. And this is good for not just your personal life, but also your business life, because a lot of times in business.
All right, guys. So the third book is going to be The Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod. This basically sets you up for a challenge of 30 days. I really enjoyed it. I did the Miracle Morning Challenge. I don't wake up that early anymore just because I don't have that much to do. I do wake up earlier than, say, 10 minutes before you got to jump out the door and go to work. So basically, it is a 30-day challenge. It's a 5 a.m. challenge. Basically, you'll see all the successful billionaires and millionaires, and just not even millionaires or billionaires, but successful people in general. They wake up early. That way, they have time to themselves to write down their goals every day, to get a workout in, eat your breakfast, just basically getting a jump start on whether it's emails or phone calls or anything like that. A jump start on your day to where you can kind of roll into your working day and be successful during your working day, or whether it's a day off or what have you. That way you're not waking up 10 minutes before you have to leave and you're pulling in right on time to get to work, and then that causes a lot of stress and anxiety for me personally. And then throughout the day I have all the stress and anxiety that I carried out from waking up right on time, getting into work throughout my day, and it doesn't help me to be as productive as I can be when I wake up earlier. Say to read a book, get a workout in, get a meal in. Because I used to wake up, right on time, get there 15 minutes early. I'm usually always early, but I've never really had an issue with that. But again, it allows me not to carry any excess stress and anxiety that I already have throughout my life into my day. Because with the sales business, it all has to do with your mentality and your demeanor throughout the day, depending on if you're going to close a sale or fail on a sale and not close it. Because customers, they can sense your personality foremost, and then just the aura that you put off in how you deal with people. Because they can sense that you're stressed, they can sense that you have anxiety. Whether it's a bad month or a good month, it's just a lot easier when you don't have that extra anxiety and stress. But again, it's a 30-day challenge. Kind of sets out little things that you can do, sets out how you set up your morning. It's just a really good book to follow if you want to see that exponential growth in your business or your just personal life. So it's a good book, and that would be my third one.
So book number 4 that we have is The Millionaire Next Door. And this is a great book to me. Let me see if I can get it to stand up for y'all. This is a great book to me because it really breaks down the concept that people have of their millionaire in America. And people think a lot of times that millionaires are these flashy people driving around in their Rolls Royce or Mercedes S-Class. And really it shows that it's not. A lot of your millionaires live in, say, a middle-class neighborhood. They're not flashy. They might drive the Honda Accord or the Toyota Tacoma. And they don't really care about being flashy and over the top. What they care about is actually investing and building their source of wealth. And they have another great book that I'm reading right now, and it's called The Millionaire Mindset. And it's tremendous with breaking down the notation that, hey, you have to be flashy, you have to do all this, and they're not as frugal with becoming millionaires and their wealth. And it just shows the way they built their wealth is investing, and it can be putting it into stocks that pay dividends, and it can put into the real estate, and they don't have to buy the gold Rolexes, they don't have to buy the Benzes, the Rolls Royce. They're fine with the $100 Invicta watch. They're fine with having your standard Honda Accord. They're fine with living in the middle class neighborhood, and they don't have to live in these $1 million mansions.
Because I've read this book too, and a lot of times you see on social media, obviously, these younger kids and teenagers or millennials, they look at social media to see, kind of what society is, but truly is not. If you're a millionaire and you just have a couple $1 million, or if you have just a couple $100,000, the easiest way to go broke is buying all these expensive things. Like I know somebody personally that does not make over six figures, and he just bought a $13,000 watch. That's probably the dumbest thing I've ever seen happen in my life, just so he could post pictures on Instagram of his $13,000 watch, which I know exactly how much money he makes. That's the dumbest decision I've ever seen anybody make in my personal life. But it just tells you how to, like he said, how to be frugal. And again, if you are a millionaire and you spend money on this lavish, obviously if you make 10 or 30 or $100 million, sure, you can be kind of flashy. But, a couple $1 million is really not that much money. You can blow that very quickly by posting all these pictures, buying cars and, homes and everything like that. There's been plenty of people out there. And that's a lot of the reasons that's why lottery winners go broke, is because they don't know how to manage their money, manage risk, and they just buy everything and they don't have more money.
Yeah, it's funny because a lot of these people that you think are millionaires, such as lawyers, financial advisors, I've seen, working in our business. You see these people that they make $300,000, $400,000 a year. It's crazy to think that somebody that's making $300,000-$400,000 a year has, a bad credit. They have bad credit scores. So. And then you take a look, and they can't really put any money down because they don't have any money because they're spending it. They're making this $30,000 a month on their credit application, but then they're saying that they have no money. And you see on their credit reports that that's going out instead of coming in is $22,000. And that's what the Millionaire Next Door is talking about, is that just because somebody makes a ton of money doesn't mean that they're actually wealthy. They're basically just income rich, and where they're making all this income, that if that income ever stopped, they have no savings, they have no fund that they could sustain for, say, a year or 6 months. Even a lot of times it's even a month or two they couldn't sustain if they ever lost their job and lost that source of income. Where the real millionaire next door is the person who, they might work as a teacher or they might work as a cop in the neighborhood, but they have this source of income where they've invested well, they've lived their life on a budget, and they haven't gone too flashy, and now they have a couple $1 million in savings and Roth IRA, 401k, what have you. But yeah, this is a great book to read. It builds the foundation of how you should start thinking, as well as, to become that millionaire. Don't let society influence you to try to go and blow it all for no reason, just to impress people that you don't even know. So book number Book number 4 is The Millionaire Next Door.
All right, guys, for my next book, it's going to be Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink. I don't have that book in a physical form. I bought it on Amazon Kindle. I do a lot of mobile reading. So I don't have that one physically. I do have it on order, so it should be here, within however long Amazon wants to take and do the 2-day shipping. Extreme Ownership basically talks about exactly what the title is. It's talking about having ownership over, whether it's success or if it's with failure, and then everybody makes mistakes. It's talking more so about taking ownership of mistakes and not blaming, whether if you're in business, your fellow coworkers, because as a leader, you're a boss sort of over a few people or a lot of people. Me, it's more so just paperwork and getting everything together, talking with banks. So if I make a mistake or something, human nature, you start pointing fingers. Basically what this does is to progress in your life and just in your business and success regardless. It's talking about taking ownership of the mistakes that you make. Jocko Willink, he talks about in his book, he made a mistake on an operation that got several of his men basically killed, which is terrible. But that's not something I have to deal with, but there could be problems or mistakes that I make that could cost the dealership and myself, thousands of dollars, within the company. So basically it just talks about, as a leader, you have to be willing to own up to your mistakes.
Read this book as well, and Jocko Willink does a great way of going over it with all of the missions from his Navy SEALs days and talking about those. And really that is a huge thing, is to be able to lay down on the sword, so to speak, and take and own up for your mistakes, because it really shows your team and your crew that you are a leader, and a true leader does this. All right, everybody, so my third book is going to be Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Now, I know a lot of people talk about Rich Dad, Poor Dad, but this was really one of the first books that I read that got me into a lot of reading. And I know you'll probably find it funny, but Ty Lopez is a big reason I started reading a lot. I know a lot of people, they all talk about how he's a scammer and all this bad stuff about Ty Lopez, but one thing I do have to say that is good about Ty Lopez is not that just his advertisements are amazing with how he advertises and brings in people, but he is somebody that actually got me into reading a lot and working on that for my knowledge into business, wealth, and success. But Rich Dad, Poor Dad is by Robert Kiyosaki, and basically talks about two father figures, his real dad as well as his friend's dad, that he learned from at a young age. And his poor dad is his actual dad. Now, when he says poor dad, his father wasn't somebody that made small amounts of money. His dad was a professor. He made good amounts of money. It was just his ideals about money and how he thought about money and how he actually spent it and used it created him to be the poor dad and make poor decisions. Now, the rich dad, his friend's father, is somebody he was a business owner, an entrepreneur. He knew, pay yourself before others, as well as assets and liabilities. So in the book, he talks about how the poor, they purchase liabilities as well as the rich purchase assets. So for instance, purchasing a brand new vehicle and financing that vehicle, that's a liability. It's not an asset. It's not something that's going to make you money, unless you're going to use it, of course, for a business. But even still, a lot of business owners, they tend to purchase sometimes these pre-owned vehicles, might be a year or two old, and that way they can take off that depreciation hit and still get a good vehicle for the money. He also talks about how the poor, middle class people and such, they actually pay more in taxes than a lot of these business owners. So, these business owners, they know the loopholes, they know how to get around the money. A big person, in the news, that's in the news every day, is Donald Trump. Donald Trump is a genius when it comes to this. He knows the ins and outs. He knows how to make the money. He knows how to make the hundreds of millions of dollars and not have to pay the amount of taxes that you would have to pay. Where your average Joe, they're making $100,000 a year, and they're paying a ton in taxes because they don't know about the write-offs, they don't know about the loopholes, how to get in and out of that. So work, and as well as working for somebody as an employee, you pay more than somebody, let's say, who makes $100,000 a year in dividend stocks that they've owned for a few years. They're paying a little less on those than somebody who's making $100,000 as an employee and not using all the loopholes and tax write-offs and such. So he really talks about the mindset that the two different people have, being somebody who is wealth driven, and they self-educate themselves and they gain that knowledge to grow their wealth and to pay less and to continue to build, versus your average Joe, person who came from middle class or poor, and their parents, for instance, didn't really know much about it and know about growing wealth and business, and they kind of just follow that same trend. In America nowadays, they say majority of adults don't even have $1,000 in their savings account. A lot of these people nowadays are living paycheck to paycheck. So this is a great book to help you gain that foundation, that knowledge of the differences and how you should look at it. This goes hand in hand with the Millionaire Next Door. That way you can kind of get into that mindset and build that. So,
yeah, that way, when you're start making a good amount of money, you start buying assets that you can write off, assets to pay for your liabilities. Like say, if you look at it as a way as, I'm going to buy a rental property or a dividend stock to pay for my car payment. That way you're not having to stress and have anxiety about that car payment when you have something that's appreciating in value and also paying your liability, something that you want. So it talks about that and ways to have assets and how rich people buy their assets first to pay for the liabilities instead of buying liabilities and then assets last. Because then that's where you run into that situation to where the average American only has $1,000 in their savings account, and then you can't buy anything. You can barely pay for your bills. Me personally, I've seen that in my personal life with just family and friends. I don't want to have to worry about that situation of me saying where's my next paycheck coming from, or how I'm gonna support my family, or how I'm gonna pay my mortgage. It's just all about buying the asset first, then your liabilities and wants last. That way you can retire early or retire or have a retirement at all.
That goes into paying yourself first over others, which he talks about, what the rich dad did. Was where he would put into his businesses, he'd put into his assets, and then he'd worry about everything else. Where the poor dad would rather pay everybody else with these liabilities that he would accumulate. So, but yeah, great book. So, last book on the list, Rich Dad Poor Dad. All right, guys. So thanks for watching. I hope that you guys found some books that you haven't read yet that you might be interested in reading. We'd love to hear what you guys have read and why you enjoyed reading it, what it's helped you with in your life. So comment that down below, as well as if you haven't already, smash the like button and make sure you subscribe for all the updates on new videos that are coming to us. So thanks for watching.
See you guys later.